In the dead of night, a phone rings, shattering the peaceful silence. Nestled in the warmth of her bed, Brianna Warland was jolted awake by the sound. The soft glow of the digital clock on her bedside table read 1:45 a.m., an ungodly hour for anyone to be calling. The number flashing on the screen was familiar. It was Heather, her best friend since kindergarten. Brianna and Heather had shared a bond that was more like sisterhood than friendship. They had weathered the stormy seas of teenage years together, celebrated their victories and picked up each other's pieces after heartbreaks. Tonight, it seemed, was one of those nights when Heather needed her. Heather's voice, laden with sobs, echoed in the silence of the night. The words tumbled out of her mouth, disjointed and desperate. It was about Sydney, her former lover. Sydney, who had left Heather for another woman, had called her late in the night. His voice, usually so confident and carefree, was filled with regret. He had confessed he'd been wrong, that he had ended his marriage, and that he wanted Heather back in his life. Brianna, half awake and struggling to comprehend the gravity of the situation, offered words of comfort. She was no stranger to Sydney's charm and his ability to manipulate. She knew Heather was vulnerable. Her heart was aching to believe Sydney. But Brianna also knew that something didn't sit right about this midnight confession. Heather's call had been unexpected, the content of Sydney's confession, even more so. But as Brianna hung up the phone, a chill ran down her spine. She was unaware, in that moment, that this phone call was merely the prologue to a series of chilling events that were about to unfold. With this chilling call, the stage was set for a story that would unravel a family of monsters. The seemingly ordinary family that Sydney belonged to was anything but. Sydney's kin, the Johnsons, were your quintessential suburban family, or so it seemed. Picket fences, friendly neighbors, and a house that looked straight out of a glossy magazine. But behind those closed doors, the narrative took a disturbing turn. Sydney's father, a man of stern demeanor, was the patriarch of the Johnson clan. He worked an average 9-to-5 job at the local bank, but his colleagues knew little about his life outside of those office walls. His silence, initially perceived as mere introversion, was a mask that hid his grotesque tastes. Sydney's mother, on the other hand, was a woman of many faces. A social butterfly, she was always a hit at neighborhood gatherings, but her charming exterior concealed a darker side. She had an obsession with taxidermy, filling their home with a macabre collection of preserved animals, a hobby that was more than just a little unsettling. Then there were Sydney's siblings, twins, who were as eerie as they were inseparable. They shared an unnerving bond, often finishing each other's sentences and demonstrating a level of synchronicity that was beyond normal. Their fascination with insects, particularly spiders, added another layer to the family's peculiarities. In the heart of this odd family stood Sydney, a man torn between his love for Heather and the monstrous legacy of his family. It's as if he was balancing on a tightrope, with his humanity and monstrous heritage on either side. And it wasn't just their peculiar hobbies that hinted at their monstrous nature. The Johnsons were known to keep to themselves, rarely mingling with others unless necessary. Their windows were always shuttered, and the house remained eerily quiet, as if holding its breath, hiding something sinister within its walls. Beneath the surface of this ordinary family, a chilling secret was waiting to be discovered. Sydney's confession to Heather was just the tip of the iceberg. The Johnson family, with their odd habits and unnerving silence, were a family of monsters living among us, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true nature. As Heather dug deeper, the horrifying truth began to emerge. In her relentless pursuit of truth, Heather began to investigate Sydney's family. She started with Sydney's mother, a seemingly sweet and harmless woman. However, beneath the facade of an everyday suburban mother, Heather unearthed a disturbing past. In her youth, Sydney's mother had been implicated in a series of unsolved crimes, her name linked to chilling incidents of arson that had left entire communities in ashes. Moving on to Sydney's father, Heather discovered a man with a penchant for manipulation and control. A man who was once a respected psychiatrist, but his license was revoked amidst allegations of unethical practices. It was alleged that he used his position to manipulate his patients, leading them into a web of deceit and exploitation. Heather's investigation then led her to Sydney's siblings. His older brother, a once promising athlete, had his career abruptly ended by a scandalous doping controversy. His younger sister, on the other hand, had a notorious reputation in the dark corners of the internet, known for her involvement in cybercrimes and hacking scandals. As Heather delved deeper, she found a string of ominous coincidences that linked Sydney's family to a series of unsolved disappearances in their hometown. She discovered a pattern, a chilling signature that pointed towards a family that thrived on chaos and destruction. With each revelation, Heather was dragged further into a chilling narrative that was stranger than fiction. A narrative that painted a picture of a family intertwined with the very fabric of crime, a family that reveled in the thrill of the unknown, and a family that was far from ordinary. The more Heather discovered, the more she began to question everything she thought she knew about Sydney. The man she once loved was turning into a stranger before her eyes. A stranger with a past that was as dark as the secrets his family harbored. Each piece of the puzzle revealed a family more horrifying than the last. The truth was far more frightening than any monster under the bed. The climax of this story, the horrifying truth about Sydney's family, isn't something that you'd find in a simple horror movie. This was a reality, a chilling narrative of a family that lived in the shadows of normalcy. Sydney's family, the so-called family of monsters, was a ticking time bomb of secrets and lies. The facade of an average suburban family hid a chilling underbelly. Beneath their picture-perfect veneer, they were orchestrators of some of the most heinous crimes that shook their community to its core. They were not just monsters in metaphorical terms. The family matriarch, a sweet-looking woman with soft eyes and a gentle smile, was the mastermind behind an illicit drug ring. She manipulated her own children, Sydney included, to carry out her dark deeds. The father, a silent accomplice, turned a blind eye to their criminal activities, choosing to drown his guilt in a bottle. The siblings, mere pawns in their mother's twisted game, were conditioned to believe that their actions were justified. They moved through life like marionettes, their strings pulled by a mother who wore the mask of a loving parent. The family home, a place that should have been a sanctuary, was nothing more than a hub for their illicit activities. As the shocking revelations came to light, the community was left reeling. The family they had welcomed into their homes, into their lives, was nothing more than a pack of wolves in sheep's clothing. They had been living, unsuspecting, alongside a family of monsters. The fallout was immense. Friends became strangers, trust was shattered, and the veil of innocence was forever torn. The family of monsters had expertly woven a web of deceit that ensnared an entire community. And yet, despite the devastation, the community rallied. They stood together, resilient in the face of adversity. They vowed to reclaim their peace, their trust, and their sense of security. The family of monsters was real and had been living among us. But they would not let this define them. They would rise, stronger and united, from the ashes of their shattered innocence. In the wake of the revelations, a community was left reeling. The news of the monster family had sent shockwaves through the town, leaving behind a trail of unease and disbelief. For the people who had known Sydney, the man they thought they knew was a world away from the monster he was revealed to be. The once tight-knit community found itself grappling with a sense of betrayal and fear. The whispers in the local grocery store, the hushed conversations at the school gates, the uneasy glances exchanged among neighbors, all echoed the same question. How could one of their own turn out to be such a nightmare? This was a man they had trusted, a man whose home they had visited, a man they had unknowingly allowed to harbor such dark secrets in their midst. For Sydney's family, the aftermath was even more devastating. The illusion of a normal family life was shattered, leaving them to pick up the pieces of a life built on lies. The pain, the shock, the sense of betrayal, they bore the brunt of it all. The children, innocent victims in this twisted tale, were left to grapple with the harsh reality of their father's true nature. As for Heather, she bore the burden of her encounter with Sydney. The call that night had changed her life, catapulted her into a chilling story that she would carry with her forever. She was left with the haunting memories of a man she once loved, now a monster in her eyes. Looking back at the series of events, the chilling revelations, the shocking discovery, one thing was clear. This was a story that would forever be etched in the annals of this town's history. A story that served as a chilling reminder of the monsters that could lurk in the most unexpected places. In the end, the monsters were not under our beds or in our closets, but living next door.